Alright, so this is a little bit off the cuff, a little bit short notice, but Josh encouraged me to do something. He couldn't make it tonight. Anyway, my name's Marwick from magikcraft.io. Teach kids how to code in Minecraft through the metaphor of magic. So the idea is that they run around in Minecraft, they come across some obstacle they can't overcome by ordinary means, and then they go to our in-browser IDE, which looks like, I'm going to go in and out of these slides quite a bit. Looks like that at the moment. I'm currently rebuilding it. And they write a spell, usually not something as complicated as that. And then they go to Minecraft and they type /cast spell name, and the spell happens. So it's pretty cool. Examples of spells are like Fireball, Lightning Bolt, which catches zombies on fire. Kids really love that. Jumping, flying, teleporting, all different cool kind of Dungeons and Dragons style spells. And yeah, so we're building our platform. It's like 95% JavaScript. We have actually a GraphQL backend, and next month I'm giving a full-length talk, well, 20 minutes I think, on GraphQL and Express.js. So that's actually, I coded that in TypeScript. So you'll actually see how to set up a GraphQL server, and as Josh said, there's a really good talk about GraphQL in 30 minutes, where he does one in Ruby on Rails, in Python, and in Node, like 10 minutes each. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's no bells and whistles, but you get the general idea of what's involved. But I'll go into a bit more detail about the schema resolver and provider architecture. A little bit different to what you demoed tonight, but just a different layout of the code. Yeah. So tonight, I was going to just talk about a few different cool things I've been playing with. Particles.js, who's seen Particles.js? Yeah, it's kind of a cool little library that does particles. So you can float them around. You can actually push these ones around. It's configurable here. You can say how many particles you want, so you can increase those particles. And it has a React component module. So now in this player, you can actually see particles floating around in the background. What I did actually, if you go to this thing here where you can configure it, you can actually dump it out as JSON at the end. So, and you get all your settings in there. So what I actually did here is I just dumped this in the top of my React components, so I've got all the settings available so I can play with it. And yeah, you can do some pretty cool stuff. What have we got here? This is my page called Particles. Now here you can see some of those particles are joined by lines, and you can specify the distance. If I can increase that. You can see the distance from which they should. Oh, that's repulse. Line joining here. So if I change that to 400, save. You can see they're joined over a much greater distance. Change it to like 800. And you can see you can do some cool stuff. Other options you can pass in is you can have the opacity, fading in and out. You can have the size of your particles pulsating. Obviously you can change your background color, you can put a gradient behind it, whatever you like. So it's kind of just a simple UI fanciness that you can add to your application. It is a little bit heavy though. I did notice that if you open your task manager, that tab is using currently 25% of my 36. And if I increase the number of particles there, it's going to jump up. So maybe not the best to use heavily. Anyway, well, that's kind of cool. Another thing that I did was a I actually gave a talk at the React meetup about this. It doesn't quite go down to the bottom here, but this is a React component, which is a matrix backdrop. It's a self-contained component. It's just it's configurable, like how fast it changes. That's our loader page. That's actually up on GitHub if anybody wants to use it. It's a bit rough and ready, but it works. Okay, so I was going to talk a little bit more about graphical because Josh showed it off. One thing about graphical is that it's just like a static thing, and usually on your GraphQL API you're going to want to put some authentication there. Otherwise, all your data is available to everyone. And how to do that, I'm going to go into some detail about that next time. But what happens is, as soon as I put authentication on my GraphQL, I could no longer use the graphical interface. It just like said, permission denied. But you can don't have to fret too much about that because there is a React component for that, which allows you to actually embed it in your app, which is really cool because then when you actually embed it, I'll show you what it looks like. It allows you to put your send your authentication token. Basically, allows you to configure it, like because you connect it to your GraphQL endpoint, but then you can, with every connection, I send along a JWT, JSON Web Token, which I'm actually going to talk about a little bit tonight, and in more detail next month. So that's really cool. You can actually continue to use it. I can run that query, and I've inserted a new law review called Your Mama. Yeah, so that's really cool. One thing I found with it, if you just put it in out of the box, it'll like be a tiny little thing up in the top right corner, all collapsed. So you had to do some CSS to actually like make it go to the full screen size. So that's a little gotcha if you ever try to use it and you're like, why is it like a tiny little thing in the top left corner? Then you just need to add some CSS, like some 100% vertical height kind of thing, and that will fix that. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about Auth0, how I do my authentication. Who's used Auth0 before? Anyone? No? Auth0 is basically authentication and identity as a service. I'll show you the. So you basically log in here, you create your apps, and then it basically gives you single sign-on for free. Like you can embed it in your app if you like import an npm library, Auth0 library, which will allow you to customize it a lot. We went super lightweight because I didn't want to maintain any of that. So we just put it in that they actually provide a hosted page. So here if I log out, by the way, this loader here, it looks so good that Josh was like, oh, make it stay on the page longer. So we actually delay it would load immediately. We delay it like 3 seconds just to like show it off. So here, this is actually an Auth0 hosted login page. So this is actually offside. We've got this redirect URL, which is going to send us back to our page. Here I've got we just use GitHub only, but it's literally just like a matter of like enabling the different OAuth providers you want to use. So it's like Facebook, Twitter, Google, all the big providers out of the box for free. Don't have to worry about anything. So I can log in. It sends me back to my app, and here I'm going to show you again. Where is it? Maybe here, I think. Probably now. Fetch user. Auth0 token. Yep, I think this one. So when it comes back, you get this big payload in the hash. So that's got like it's got an access token, it's got an expired date. The one that I really care about is the ID token, which is actually a JSON web token. So what we do is we pull that from the URL, put it into local storage, and then also send it to the server to get the user. Because you can't rely on the client for authentication. Oops, what's happening? Save. Anyway, should be logged in now. Yeah, so actually send that to the server. I'll show you just briefly what that looks like. Oops, which one's this? So I actually use a module called Express JWT. Does anybody not know what JWT is? I guess a lot of people. It's a JSON web token. Basically gives you this big long hash string, which you can decode. So the cool thing about that is that you just like attach it to a request to your API, and it sends that. And what happens is you just use this Express middleware. That's literally all it takes. And what that does is it verifies the token, and then it will either fail with a 401, access denied, if it doesn't verify, or it will pass to the next middleware in your Express router with the token decoded and attached to the request as the user. So that's cool. Like in the token, in the Auth0 token, you actually get the user ID, and based on that user ID, I then make a request to the database like the full user, and then pass that down the line until it comes to the request resolver. And in many cases for us, our main endpoint is our GraphQL endpoint. And then you can pass that into your GraphQL query resolvers. So the GraphQL actually knows who the user is. And you can user object, you can, whatever schema you want to use for user object. I use like a permissions table. And you can tell if they're admin or not. And then you can wrap all your resolvers in like a authentication check, which is really good. Otherwise, everything would be exposed to everyone. So that's really lightweight way to do user handling with Auth0, because the JSON web token is basically a user session. Like you don't have to maintain that anywhere else. You just pass along the request. It'll decode it. It knows who the user is, and then you can carry on with an authenticated user. So I thought that's pretty cool. So actually I have pretty much no user handling code in the client. I have a few helpers, like are they logged in, are they admin, but all the heavy lifting is actually done through the JWT handling in the back end, which just decodes, attaches the user, and we actually send the user back to the client. Yeah. I'll go into a bit more detail about that next week. I'm going to talk a little bit about the lean tweeter. This is not specifically related to JavaScript. This is more about startups. So one of the best books you can, if you're interested in startups, I highly recommend the book The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It's fantastic. It's probably the best book I've ever read on startups. Very comprehensive. So he talks a lot about having a build, measure, learn feedback loop. And Josh is very fond of saying now these days that all your ideas, they're wrong. 100% wrong. And the only source of truth is what your users actually respond to. So the whole idea with startups is that you want to have a tight loop between you build something, MVP, so you don't overbuild it. You build it minimally, enough that you can actually put it in front of users. The users will give you feedback on that, and then you learn from that and iterate based on that. And you want to have a tight iteration loop to develop your product against, rather than like going into isolation. It's easy to do as developers. I know, like just get in the weeds of developing, get very excited about that, and think, oh, what I'm making is great. But the real thing is, like, your users don't care about your back-end implementation, how clean your code is, what libraries, what frameworks you're using. They don't care about any of that. They just care about what they see in their browser, you know, and how easy it is to use, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's very important to tighten that loop. And then you learn a lot from that. And usually it surprises you what you learn. What you think was a great idea, people don't respond to. What was just like a little hack that you just did to like make it work now, actually turns into a feature that people really like. And it's very hard to predict. So you can take this to content development as well. So Josh, the other day we had a young girl, maybe I think she's 11, 12, and at Fishburners with us, and she was just running through our magikcraft curriculum. And Josh is a prolific tweeter, so he tweeted out like, I don't know, 20 or 30 tweets that day. And this tweet in particular got 16 retweets and 55 likes. So it's like, that tweet was different from all the other tweets in terms of what response it got. And the key was girls who code. So that's a huge thing. Like, obviously you can see tonight, there's like maybe a handful of women here. I know Jamie's here, and yeah, another woman just walked out. So, well, women are quite underrepresented, and it's a big issue. You know, like it's a well-known issue with the tech industry that women are massively underrepresented, and there's no good reason for it. It's all based on outdated stereotypes that women aren't good at it, or I don't know, it's not for them. And probably it's also intimidating for women to get into a field that's dominated by men. So it's a big thing. People are very for this cause, and yeah, we really found that they responded well to that. So that's a good example where you just throw a lot of stuff out there, you see what people actually respond to, and then you latch onto that. So big thing for us in our PR campaign and our marketing for magikcraft is that we want to make coding available to girls. And actually, what we see, you get a bunch of like 10, 11-year-old boys, and they immediately try to just run around trying to kill each other until they get so frustrated with like dying constantly that they say, can you turn off PvP? So we turn off PvP. But the girls are much more engaged actually. They go through the content systematically, they're interested in the storyline, and they're actually, to be honest, better students than the boys. So yeah, we want to encourage that. And yeah, just if you're doing content development, if you're trying to work out your messaging for your company, for your app, whatever, just throw a lot of stuff out there and get real user feedback. Don't rely on your own like taste or your own what you think's great, because it's wrong. Sorry to say it, but it's wrong. It's either like very wrong or a little mostly wrong, and you're only going to find that out when you get user feedback from that. What else have I got here? I think that's all I would have to cover tonight. I do have. I'm just going to throw it out there because there's a lot of good JavaScript developers in the room. If anybody can help me with this problem, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm trying to make this. This is what I was going to show. Actually, we'll show you one more thing. Sorry. So Josh was talked a little bit about subscriptions in Relay, and he said I didn't quite. You said it's available, but
yeah, it works with Relay and GraphQL.
Okay, cool. So we're actually using Apollo, which is like the big competitor to Relay, I guess.
Boo.
I used it because what I like about it, which looks like you can do the same thing with Relay. Relay, from what I understand, is a little more complicated to set up, but you get a lot of like great features like client-side caching and optimization, performance for large apps. I went with Apollo because it's like very little setup time and seemed much of a muchness between them. but it does also have subscriptions, which is super cool. So I can actually show you that in action. So here I have a list of, I'm just going to delete some of those. Delete my URLs. This is actually a MySQL backend that I slapped onto the back of the GraphQL. So here I'm inserting law revealed. So you can actually see in here, if I refresh that, I have no your numbers in here. But if I fire this off, this is a mutation query here. If I fire that off, that gets inserted into the database, and you can see that appears right there. So that's subscription. So what you do is you have your client subscribes to a particular query with your query variable, which in this case is the username, and it saves it in the back end, it watches it, and then when you actually do your mutation, then you call a pub/sub event, you admit a pub/sub event, which then causes it to push down to the client, which is pretty cool actually. We want to use that to get our spells onto the server, because when you save spells, we have to push them into the Minecraft server so you can actually cast them. So this issue that I was bringing up here, this is about trying to create a server-side subscription for a poller. And the issue I'm having is that TypeScript doesn't like this import. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up. If anybody can help me with that, like spend 5 minutes with me, that'd be really great, because this is like the last major blocker to redeveloping our application. Josh is actually going to Norway, NDC conference in June 9th, and we're going to have something ready for that. He's also going to go to Dublin, Ireland for Code Dojo Schools projects, and also to Denmark. So pressure's on to get this finished, and already nice. Server-side subscriptions is the blocker, because all the documentation is all about client-side subscriptions, specifically in React. But it looks like you can do it. I'm just having trouble with the syntax there. Anyway, based on anything I've covered tonight, does anybody have questions? No? Okay. Huh?
Yes. What concerns do you have about Auth0 becoming a single point of failure for the web?
A single
Point of failure.
point of failure? The thing is, we don't rely on it that much. You know, what we do is we use it for the SSO, basically, single sign-on. And it sends back the web token, and then we actually keep our own user database with the user ID in there. So if the company was to fall over, I doubt it would fall over very suddenly. They seem to be doing quite well. It's not like we're majorly invested in that. We're just using it, like we say, we use the hosted login page. It actually stores our users, and if we wanted to like roll other SEO providers, do it pretty much zero cost, like literally. And yeah, it provides a solid user identity and security for us at the moment. If it was to fall over, the cost of swapping it out would be very, very low for us. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.